Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive, the podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it
We examine the pieces.
and expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in.
What if everything about the trustworthy crypto friend isn't just wrong, but is designed to be wrong? Okay, so today we're really taking the scalpel to something. It's this whole phenomenon, this financial influencer who acts like your buddy, and we're going deep. A ruthless, logical dismantling, really. We're using the whole Ben Armstrong ecosystem as, let's call it the prime case study.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. And our mission here, it's really for you listening. We want to basically lay out the blueprints, show you how the psychological manipulation works, how the money flows, the monetization mechanics.
And the flaws, the built-in flaws that mean these things always collapse eventually.
Exactly. We're not really here to get bogged down in the moral outrage, though there's plenty of that. We want to dissect the operational architecture. How was this whole illusion built?
Because if you understand how the machine works,
then you can spot it. You can spot similar setups anywhere online and hopefully neutralize the threat before you get caught up in it.
right. So first step in any deconstruction, analyze the foundation, the structure. We have to understand the anatomy of the persona itself. How is this trustworthy friend actually engineered? How did it get so big, and how did it pull people in?
Well, when you look at how it started, that initial construction phase, what do you think is the absolute key? The way this whole system first hooks into the audience's mind.
For me, it has to be the origin myth. It's all about that perceived humility, isn't it?
Absolutely. You track it back, say, 2018 to 2021, the positioning early on, it was just so carefully crafted, the genuine enthusiast.
Yeah, the guy who just loves this stuff.
Exactly. And think about the early videos. The production quality was, well, let's be honest, it was pretty amateurish.
Basic.
Basic, yeah. Animated stuff, sometimes memes. It didn't look slick. It didn't look like corporate finance news.
Which was the point, right?
Totally. It looked like some guy, in his basement, just excited about Bitcoin and wanting to share.
That low quality wasn't a bug, it was a feature. It immediately set him apart from, the Wall Street types, the traditional gatekeepers.
It screamed accessibility.
Right.
It implied, hey, I'm just like you. I stumbled onto this, figured some things out, and I'm just sharing. I'm not selling you anything.
At least not yet.
Right, not explicitly yet. And the timing, wow. The timing was just perfect. That massive growth spurt, it happened right when the 2021 Bitcoin mania hit the mainstream.
Everyone was talking about it.
Everyone. And the channel just exploded. The sources show it clearly leveraging that massive hype cycle, went from, 350,000 subs, which is already huge, to over 1 million. Really fast. The market going nuts provided the external validation, you could say. But the persona, that trustworthy friend, that was the container that caught all that incoming attention.
Okay, so the persona's established. He's riding these huge waves of market excitement. But how do you turn those eyeballs, those passive subscribers, into something more? Into a, mobilized, loyal asset?
That's the next layer. The community mechanic. It wasn't just a channel with viewers. It became the Bit Squad.
The Bit Squad.
Right.
Giving it a name.
Giving it a name, making it exclusive. And that loyalty, that squad feeling, it was cemented by two key things, really. One, tangible stuff, crypto giveaways. People love free stuff.
Always works.
Always. But maybe more importantly, number two, the psychological framing. All the content was presented as just casual conversation.
Just hanging out, talking crypto.
Exactly. We're just buddies shooting the breeze. And that didn't just build a following. It actively forged these really powerful parasocial bonds.
Explain that. Parasocial.
It's that one-sided relationship where the audience feels like they genuinely know and connect with a media figure, but the figure doesn't know them back personally. They didn't feel like they were watching a broadcast. They felt like they were part of this cool, slightly underground club.
Like talking shop with a friend who just happens to be a bit ahead, who has the inside scoop.
Precisely. And that feeling, that perceived intimacy, that's the moment the audience transitions. They stop being just viewers and become, well, you said it earlier, human capital.
Monetizable.
Monetizable. They weren't just emotionally bought in. They became this quantifiable resource, an engine, really, that could be steered to move small markets if needed.
Which brings us to the production shift.
Yeah.
Because the content did change, didn't it?
Oh, dramatically. That pivot really confirms how calculated the whole thing was. The early stuff, the low traction animations, the memes, maybe that reflected some genuine early interest. Who knows?
Maybe.
But it shifted hard. Straight into high traction, high frequency stuff, daily news updates, and crucially, token reviews.
Lots and lots of token reviews.
Non-stop. And that pivot, you have to see it for what it was. It wasn't just, oh, I'm interested in this now. It was pure optimization for algorithmic engagement.
YouTube rewards daily uploads, right? Constant churn.
Exactly. It wasn't about exploring decentralized ethics or the tech's potential anymore. It was about maximizing attention, getting those views, keeping people hooked day after day. Because that attention currency, that's the absolute prerequisite for the next phase.
Which is?
Direct monetization. They needed that daily rhythm, that constant stream of content, and especially the immediate call to action that a token review provides. Here's a coin, maybe you should look at it. Wink, wink.
And this is where the whole thing starts to buckle structurally, isn't it? The monetization infrastructure.
Yeah.
You hit that fundamental, irreconcilable conflict.
Bingo. How on earth do you maintain the illusion, the persona of the trustworthy friend when your actual business model is being a paid shill?
You can't. Logically, it's impossible. The conflict is absolute. The second money dictates the recommendations.
The friend persona isn't just weakened, it flips. It becomes a weapon. It's the sophisticated camouflage for the business operation underneath.
The friendship is the delivery mechanism for the paid promotion. The Trojan horse.
Perfectly put. And for anyone looking critically, the hard data just shreds the narrative. That documented pricing matrix, it lays the economics completely bare.
This wasn't just, helping out projects he liked. This was a published price list. Yeah. A rigid, itemized menu for selling his audience's attention.
It's quite stunning when you see it laid out.
Yeah, let's get into the specifics, because this is where it gets really frankly, kind of disgusting. You have to understand the actual costs here. A dedicated review for a token on the channel.
How much?
$35,000. $35K. That bought guaranteed airtime, guaranteed positive spin.
Wow.
Want a dedicated YouTube interview instead? $40,000. $40K.
Even more.
Yep. If you just wanted a quick mention during a live stream, $20,000.
20 grand for a shout out.
Even the lower tier stuff wasn't cheap. A Telegram, AMA, ask me anything, $10,000.
Yeah.
And just a basic article on the website, $2,500.
Those aren't the prices of a buddy giving you a stock tip over beers, are they?
No. Those are the rates of a major media outlet selling access. Access to a hyper-loyal, highly mobilized audience ready to act.
And the rigidity of that price list, that matrix, it just screams that the community wasn't seen as people. They were a resource, defined entirely by their potential to generate exit liquidity for whoever paid the fee.
Let's talk about that exit liquidity, because the type of promotion matters here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The pattern was very specific.
Very. It focused almost exclusively on small cap tokens.
Meaning coins with a market capitalization under, what, $100 million?
Usually, yeah. Sometimes much smaller. And why? Think about it. You can't easily pump the price of Bitcoin or Ethereum just by talking about it. They're too big, too much liquidity.
But a tiny token.
Sure.
Maybe you only traded on a couple of obscure exchanges.
Yeah.
With 1 million dedicated followers hanging on your every word.
Oh, you can absolutely ignite a massive temporary price spike. The Bit Squad essentially became the pump engine.
So the promoter pays the fee, say $40 for the interview.
The influencer hypes the coin, the audience piles in, driving the price way up. And then the promoter, or maybe even the influencer themselves, sells their initial holdings into that artificial surge. Classic pump and dump.
Enabled entirely by the friend persona that got the audience to buy in the first place.
Exactly. And this isn't just theory. The evidence is concrete, not just whispers. Our sources name specific tokens, PAMP, INU, UDO.
I remember them.
Yeah. Promotions that are all documented, followed by absolutely catastrophic collapses. We're talking 99% price declines after that initial manufactured spike.
99%. Wiped out.
Wiped out. And that outcome, you have to understand, it wasn't just bad luck or a wrong prediction. It was the guaranteed result of the paid promotion model operating on those small, illiquid assets. The audience was systematically, predictably turned into exit liquidity.
So the takeaway from this first section is stark, isn't it? The whole authenticity thing built the audience.
And the pricing matrix sold them out. It proves the system wasn't just flawed. It was, from a structural standpoint, designed to be wrong from the very beginning.
Okay, so we've laid out that core structural conflict. The friend versus the shill. Now we need to get more granular. Bring in the scalpel. Look at the micromechanics. How do they actually keep this illusion running day after day, week after week?
Right. How do you maintain the lie when the evidence starts mounting?
Exactly. And we've identified this sort of systematic toolkit. Let's call it the tactical deconstruction framework. 12 core manipulation nodes, essentially.
12 distinct mechanisms. Okay.
Let's break them down. I'll focus on the mechanics, how the trick works. Maybe you can focus on the effect it has, why it works on people.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
We have to start with the foundation. Trust building and defense. You can't run a con without getting people to trust you implicitly first. So node 1. The genuine fascination origin. We touched on the amateur look, but the narrative was key.
That story he told again and again. The accidental millionaire who started with just 3,500 subscribers.
Yeah. Why is that story so effective?
It's that constant projection of humility, isn't it? It creates this immediate sense of relatability. It suggests, hey, I'm not some Wall Street wizard. I struggled just like you. It bypasses your natural skepticism towards someone presented as a financial guru. You trust their motives more if you think they came from the same place.
Okay, so the humble origin story gets them in the door.
Yeah.
But that needs constant reinforcement, right? Which brings us to node 2, the casual conversation persona.
Ah, yes. The deliberate framing. We're just talking here, just chatting with buddies.
Why frame it that way? What does that do psychologically?
It activates a really critical mental shield, or rather it lowers one. It triggers the friend versus advisor duality.
Explain that.
Think about it. If someone presents themselves as a professional financial advisor, you scrutinize their advice, right? You question their motives, maybe check their qualifications. You're naturally skeptical.
They're guarded.
But when a friend enthusiastically tells you about some amazing opportunity they found, you instinctively lower your critical defenses. You assume their motive is pure. They want you to benefit too. That casual conversation frame is designed specifically to disable your internal financial auditor.
Makes sense. So trust is the currency here. But what happens when things go wrong? When the promoted coins crash and the audience starts losing money, you need an insurance policy.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly. Node 3. The pump and deny defense. This is that pervasive, calculated abuse of the legal disclaimer.
The infamous not financial advice, usually rattled off at lightning speed.
Right. Delivered right alongside explicit financial directives. This coin is going to the moon. You got to get in now. NFADYR.
It's pure cognitive dissonance injected directly into the audience's brain. The message is split. The enthusiasm and the direct call to action say BUY, while the rushed legal disclaimer supposedly covers them.
What's the psychological impact of hearing those two contradictory things at once?
It's actually quite insidious. It gives the listener a kind of permission slip to take the risk. The excitement is what lands, but the responsibility for the outcome feels like it's been legally deflected onto them because of the disclaimer. He told me it wasn't advice, so it's on me if it fails, even though the intent was clearly directive.
Wow. Okay, so that's how trust is built and defended initially. But eventually, the losses pile up. The 99% crashes become undeniable. Critics start speaking out. How does the system defend itself then?
Now we move into the next cluster, aggression and silencing mechanisms. When the truth starts getting traction, the system has to react, often with overwhelming force.
Right. Node 4. The character assassination counter. This is weaponizing the legal system, specifically defamation law.
We saw concrete examples of this, didn't we? Like the lawsuit filed against Atosi.
Yeah, Atosi was a journalist, a critic who was pretty relentlessly documenting the patterns, pointing out the paid promotions and the subsequent crashes.
And the response wasn't to refute the evidence, was it?
No. It was to sue him for defamation, claiming, what was it, $75,000 in damages.
And the goal there isn't necessarily to win the lawsuit on merit, is it?
Probably not. The goal is intimidation, pure and simple. Filing a hefty lawsuit against a journalist or any critic forces them into a defensive posture. They have to lawyer up, face potentially huge legal bills, deal with the stress. It's a tactic to silence critics by burying them in the process itself.
And that ties directly into the next node, node 6, financial coercion. It's resource warfare.
Exactly, using your deeper pockets as a weapon. Critics who got sued, or even just threatened, they had to realistically look at the potential costs. Sources estimated it could be anywhere from $50,000.
50 grand?
All the way up to maybe $500,000 to properly defend themselves in a long, drawn-out legal battle.
$500,000. For most independent journalists or critics, that's not just expensive, it's absolutely ruinous.
Completely. So the legal system itself, the cost of engaging with it, becomes the silencing tool. You don't even have to have a strong case. You just need more money and more willingness to spend it than the person you're trying to shut up. Bleed them dry until they retract or just give up.
And where does the money for these expensive legal threats come from?
Well, that's the ugly feedback loop, isn't it? It comes directly from the revenue generated by those $40,000 shill videos. The money made exploiting the audience is then used to legally suppress anyone who points out the exploitation. It's grimly efficient.
It really is a closed loop. Okay, so silence the critics. But you still need to maintain the appearance of expertise to keep commanding those fees and that loyalty.
Right, which leads to Node 7, content parasitism. Basically, stealing intellectual property.
What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Specifically, things like paywalled charts and sophisticated market analysis. There were documented instances of stealing content from established technical analysts, like someone called Smart Contractor.
Okay, so Smart Contractor does deep, maybe complex, analysis behind a paywall.
And then those charts, that analysis, suddenly appear in the influencer's content, presented as their own work.
And that serves two purposes, I imagine.
Exactly. First, obviously, it saves them the effort of actually doing the hard analytical work themselves. But second, and maybe more crucially, it projects this image of deep expertise and sophistication that's completely unearned. It's authority by plagiarism.
And the audience, who probably can't replicate that complex analysis or maybe doesn't even know the original source.
They just see the impressive-looking charts and assume the host must really know their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It reinforces the guru status needed to sell the next $35,000 token review. If the material looks complex, people are less likely to question it, especially if they don't understand the jargon.
Making the complexity itself a barrier to verification. Clever in a dark way.
Okay, so trust is built, critics are intimidated or silenced, fake authority is projected. But reality still keeps intruding. Bad investments happen, internal conflicts arise. How does the system distort the narrative to survive these hits?
Now we're entering the narrative distortion field. This is about actively blurring the lines, twisting reality to fit the required story.
Let's start with Note 5, victimhood inversion. This is a classic tactic, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. When something goes wrong, maybe a bad business decision, maybe infighting the person responsible flips the script. They portray themselves as the victim.
We saw this with the whole company coup narrative that emerged during internal disputes. Instead of admitting, say, mismanagement or strategic failure.
It gets reframed as a malicious betrayal. They're trying to take me down. It's a conspiracy against me.
And the effect on the loyal followers.
It's incredibly powerful. Because of those parasocial bonds, if the leader they feel close to is suddenly framed as a victim, their instinct is to rally around him, defend him, circle the wagons. And crucially, it directs their attention away from any evidence of his own potential wrongdoing or incompetence.
Loyalty overrides logic again. But sometimes the system needs a quick credibility boost, right? A way to seem honest.
Which brings us to Note 8, weaponized transparency. This is fascinating. It's selective confession, but done very strategically.
Like admitting to past mistakes or past scam involvements. We saw mentions of admitting promotions like DOX, which was already widely criticized.
Exactly. Why admit to something bad you did?
It seems counterintuitive.
But it's not. Admitting a past transgression, especially one that's probably already public knowledge anyway, creates this powerful illusion of present honesty. It communicates, look, I messed up back then, I learned my lesson, I'm being open with you now, therefore you can trust me about this current thing I'm pushing.
So confessing yesterday's scam builds trust for today's potential scam.
Precisely. The audience feels like they're getting the inside scoop, the real story, which paradoxically deepens their trust and makes them more receptive to the current pitch. The transparency is a calculated performance.
Okay, and what happens when the evidence just keeps piling up? When the cracks are too big to paper over with selective honesty or victim narratives? What's the last line of narrative defense?
That's when you deploy Note 11. Systemic conspiracy. Pure external blame projection.
Shifting all the blame outwards.
Completely. It's never the fault of the flawed business model or the bad calls. It has to be the fault of some vast, shadowy, powerful enemy. You start hearing dramatic language, claims of Ryko-level conspiracies targeting them.
Veiled enemies. They are trying to suppress the truth. They don't want you to get rich.
Exactly. It maintains the reality distortion field for the hardcore believers. It explains away all failures and contradictions as proof of the conspiracy against their leader, further isolating them from outside criticism.
This feels like it's escalating, though, moving beyond just narrative control.
It is. We're entering the terminal escalation phase now. This is where the desperation starts showing and the boundaries really break down. Node 9, IRL harassment escalation.
IRL, in real life. Taking it offline.
Yes. This is when the digital aggression spills over into the physical world. The example cited is that live stream apparently done from the home of Carlos Diaz, a former associate. That's a huge escalation.
Showing up at someone's house.
Yes. And broadcasting it. It's physical intimidation. It shatters any remaining professional facade. It signals a loss of control, a shift from calculated manipulation to raw personal chaos. The strategic mask is slipping badly.
And in that chaos, that downward spiral, what's the final psychological play?
Node 10, the martyrdom narrative.
Playing the martyr.
Exactly. Framing the consequences of your own actions, losing your company backing, getting kicked off platforms, facing lawsuits as noble sacrifices. I'm losing everything for you, for the truth.
Why does that work?
It creates sacrificial legitimacy. If the leader is perceived as willing to go down in flames, fighting for the cause, for the community, it generates immense emotional power. It allows the remaining followers to rationalize their continued support, even as the whole ship is sinking. He's not failing, he's being martyred.
So we've gone through trust building, silencing, narrative distortion, and final escalation. But all these tactics, all these nodes, they all serve one core function, don't they?
They all lead back to the fundamental cold logic of the entire operation. Node 12. Audience is collateral.
The ultimate dehumanization.
Absolutely. That rigid, published media kit pricing proves it beyond any doubt. The audience wasn't a community to be educated or helped. They weren't friends. They were a resource, a pool of easily manipulated human capital.
Collateral.
Collateral. Their attention, their trust, their money, that was the asset being sold repeatedly to the highest bidder, the promoters paying those huge fees. Every single node we discussed was designed to maintain and exploit that collateral. That was the entire business model. Okay, so that systematic breakdown, those 12 nodes, really shows the how, doesn't it? How the engine was built, how it was defended piece by piece.
Yeah, the mechanics of the lie.
But now we need to connect the dots more broadly. Why do these specific tactics work so well, so consistently on people? This isn't just about crypto, it's about recognizing patterns. This is cross-systemic pattern recognition. We're seeing historical grift, old manipulation techniques, just repackaged for the digital age.
It's chilling when you put it like that. These aren't new tricks.
Not at all. They're ancient psychological levers. Let's take that genuine origin story we started with, the humble beginnings, the shared struggle. Where have we seen that exact pattern leveraged before?
Multi-level marketing. MLMs.
Bingo. It maps perfectly onto MLM recruitment. The focus in MLM is almost never truly on the product itself. It's on the dream, the shared struggle against the boring 9-to-5, the promise of financial freedom.
And the leader, the upline, always has that story, right?
Yeah,
I started just like you in my garage.
And now look at my mansion car lifestyle. That shared history, that aspirational story, demands loyalty. It makes you invest emotionally and financially in the system. And often it involves recruiting more people below you, more human capital, mirroring exactly how the Bit Squad needed a constant influx of new buyers, new exit liquidity.
Okay, what about Node 3, the pump and deny defense? That lightning-fast legal disclaimer tacked on to a hard sell.
Where else do you see a powerful emotional pitch followed by a rushed, barely audible list of warnings?
Pharmaceutical ads on TV.
Exactly. It's the pharma advertising playbook. The visuals, the music, the emotional story, they all create the strong desire for the drug's benefits. Then the potential side effects, the legal bits, are rattled off super quickly, often over distracting visuals or in tiny print.
The emotional sell overrides the rational warning.
Precisely. The legal disclaimer isn't really there to inform you. It's there to act as a persuasion shield for the seller. It covers them legally while the emotional pitch does the heavy lifting.
And that powerful deflection tool, Node 5, victimhood inversion, playing the persecuted hero.
That has strong echoes of high-pressure televangelism, doesn't it?
How so?
Think about televangelists who come under scrutiny, often for, let's say, questionable financial practices. What's the defense? It's rarely addressing the specific financial questions. Instead, it's often framed as a spiritual attack. Satan is attacking this ministry, or the secular world wants to silence God's message.
Right. They are persecuting me because I'm doing good work.
Exactly. And in the crypto context, it's the banks, the elites, the system doesn't want you to have financial freedom. So they're attacking me, the messenger. It demands immediate loyalty, often financial support, as a sign of faith against these powerful, nebulous enemies.
Okay, moving to the more aggressive tactics. Node 6, financial coercion, using lawsuits to bleed critics dry.
That's a well-established corporate tactic. It's known as the SLAPP suit.
SLAPP.
Strategic lawsuit against public participation. Big corporations sometimes use these against small activist groups, journalists, or individuals who are criticizing them.
And the goal isn't necessarily to win?
Often, no. The goal is simply to use the immense cost and complexity of the legal system to drain the critic's resources financially and emotionally, make it too painful, too expensive to continue speaking out. Regardless of whether the criticism was valid, the power imbalance is the weapon. It's legal bullying via resource depletion.
And finally, that last-ditch effort, Node 10, the martyrdom narrative, framing your downfall as a noble sacrifice.
Where do we see leaders clinging to power by portraying their failures or even arrests as sacrifices made for the people?
That sounds like tactics used in political dictatorship sometimes.
It has those parallels. Leaders who manage to frame their catastrophic failures, their loss of power, even imprisonment, as proof of their dedication, their willingness to suffer for the cause, they can maintain this intense cult-like emotional loyalty long after their actual power has crumbled. It grants them a kind of sacrificial legitimacy.
So the scary thing isn't that these are new crypto-specific manipulations.
No. The sophistication lies in how seamlessly these ancient psychological exploits were woven into this very modern, highly technical crypto environment. They use the novelty and complexity of crypto as camouflage for very old tricks.
Which brings us to the why. Why were people, even supposedly savvy investors, so vulnerable? We need to look at the psychological architecture of vulnerability.
What were the core emotional buttons being pushed here, relentlessly?
I see three main ones. First, obviously, the lure of get rich quick. Crypto's volatility offers that intoxicating promise.
The shortcut dream.
Exactly. Second, tapping into that vein of paranoia and resentment. They don't want you to win. The establishment, the banks, whoever they are.
Creating an enemy.
And third, creating that powerful sense of belonging.
Right.
The US versus them mentality. We, the enlightened bit squad, against the ignorant or malicious outsiders. It's a potent mix. Greed, resentment, and tribalism.
And that cocktail works especially well when the subject matter itself is deliberately kept murky or complex. That's the complexity barrier.
Right. The constant use of jargon, the obscure technical details, the references to, gray areas of DeFi.
Yes, those gray areas are crucial. What are they really?
They're basically regulatory loopholes, aren't they? Gaps where the rules haven't caught up with the tech.
Precisely. Because regulators like the SEC have been slow or unsure about how to classify all these new tokens and DeFi things, the securities, commodities, something else. It creates this legal fog.
A vacuum.
A vacuum where influencers can operate. They can give advice that sounds professional, that acts like financial advice, but because it's not officially regulated as such, they can hide behind the not financial advice disclaimer. The complexity prevents easy verification. If you, the listener, don't understand the intricacies of yield farming or consensus mechanisms,
you have to trust the guy who sounds confident and charismatic, who acts like he does understand it.
Exactly. Your reliance shifts entirely onto the personality. And that reliance is cemented by those directive contradictions we talked about earlier. The system starts actively messing with the audience's ability to think clearly.
That cognitive dissonance again. What were the two big ones?
First, don't trust anybody, but trust me.
How does that work?
Because a me is positioned as the only safe harbor. The one insider you can trust in a sea supposedly full of sharks and scammers. You're instructed to be universally skeptical, except towards the one person who is actively asking for your unquestioning trust and potentially exploiting it.
And the second contradiction.
Do your own research. But here's the specific coin I was just paid to tell you about.
The illusion of autonomy.
Completely. It feels like you're being empowered, like you're making your own informed decision based on research, but you've been subtly, or not so subtly, pointed towards a very specific conclusion, usually one that benefits the influencer or their sponsor.
Okay, so all these vulnerabilities, they lead us to what we can call the audience vulnerability matrix. 4 key factors that made this specific audience, the Bib Squad, not just susceptible, but kind of the ideal target demographic. Yeah. And you, listening, need to see if any of these resonate to build your own defenses.
Factor number 1, foundational.
Financial desperation, or at least a strong desire for a shortcut. People who are maybe struggling or just impatient with traditional slow-growth investing. They're drawn to crypto's promise of rapid wealth, making them prime targets for anyone offering a fast track.
Makes sense. Factor number 2.
Technical illiteracy, or maybe just a lack of time or inclination to dive deep into the complex tech. If you can't independently verify the claims being made about a specific blockchain project or token,
you default to trusting the messenger, not the message's verifiable content. The knowledge gap becomes an exploitable weakness.
Factor 3 is crucial. We keep coming back to it. Parasocial dependency.
That emotional bond. The feeling that the influencer is a friend.
And that emotional connection completely overrides logical analysis. It becomes almost impossible to accept that this friend is systematically selling you out for $40,000 a pop in promotion fees. Accepting betrayal is emotionally devastating, much harder than just admitting you made a bad investment call.
The heart overrules the head. And the final factor, the one that drives the immediate action.
FOMO. Pure and simple. Fear of missing out.
The rocket ship leaving without you.
Exactly. When that trusted friend tells you, with incredible urgency, that this coin is about to 100x, maybe tomorrow, rational thought goes out the window. Critical analysis needs time. It needs distance. FOMO destroys both. It triggers impulsive, high-risk decisions.
Decisions that almost always benefit the person creating the FOMO, the seller.
Right. We've seen the structure, the psychology, the vulnerabilities. Now, let's look at the endgame, the inevitable crash. We need to trace the inevitable collapse sequence. Because this wasn't just bad luck or a few mistakes. The failure was built in. The system was designed to self-destruct.
It absolutely was. When your entire foundation is built on these deep, irreconcilable contradictions, collapse isn't a possibility, it's a mathematical certainty. Let's spell out the self-negating elements again.
Okay, first, the core idea of a trust-based business without actual trust.
How does that self-negate?
Because audience trust in this model isn't nurtured, it's consumed. It's treated like a finite resource. And when you burn through that resource with very public, easily documented failures, promoting coins like PAMP, INU, UDO, that then crash 99%.
You deplete the resource. And once it's gone, especially after such blatant betrayals, it's almost impossible to genuinely rebuild. The well is poisoned.
Second contradiction, transparent opacity.
Sounds like an oxymoron.
It is. It's the impossibility of using that weaponized honesty, admitting past scams like Day X while you're simultaneously planning or executing current ones. The timeline always catches up. Eventually, the evidence of the new manipulations surfaces, and the claim of transparency about the past looks like just another lie. The facade has an expiration date.
Okay. And third?
Legal bullying without legal substance. Those intimidation tactics, the defamation suits, they only work as long as they aren't seriously challenged.
Like the Atosi lawsuit withdrawal.
Exactly. That was the moment the bluff was called. When the critic actually stood their ground, prepared to fight in court, the aggressor backed down. It proved the threats were mostly bluster, not backed by real legal merit. The intimidation factor dissolves once confronted.
And maybe the ultimate contradiction? Community exploitation. The Bit Squad was put in an impossible position. They were simultaneously the product being sold, their attention, their potential investment, to the promoters.
For $40 a pop.
And D, they were also the end customer being urged to buy the tokens those promoters were dumping. Their financial interests were fundamentally diametrically opposed to the interests of the influencer and his paying clients. That conflict has to tear the system apart eventually. You can't serve two masters like that.
So this structure lets us map out the failure sequence pretty clearly. A cascade failure model. Where does it start?
It starts with that primary vulnerability. The fundamental mismatch between the friend persona and the paid shill business model. That's the original sin, the core weakness.
Which inevitably leads to
secondary effects. The evidence starts piling up: the media kit, the list of dead coins, the public criticisms, and importantly, the failed attempts at intimidation. When the bullying stops working, the system loses a key defense mechanism.
And that leads to the next stage.
Tertiary collapse. This is when the institutional support dries up. Allies back away, key partners leave, and crucially, the platforms themselves start deplatforming you. We saw that with the removal from Hit Network.
Losing platform access is like losing oxygen, right?
Yeah.
You lose your reach.
You lose your audience, you lose your human capital, the machine grinds to a halt.
Until you finally reach the
terminal state. The audience evaporates, you can see it in the plummeting view counts, and usually financial ruin follows for the influencer and definitely for many of the followers left holding worthless bags. It's a predictable cycle coded into the faulty design from the very beginning.
Let's put some dates on this. Walk people through the critical collapse timeline, phase by phase, so they can see how this...
Mostly in niche communities, certain subreddits, specialized financial Twitter circles, people started questioning the quality of the coins being promoted, the sustainability. Also, you saw that aggressive public confrontation with Anthony Pompliano.
Pomp. Yeah, he's a big name in finance podcasting.
Right. And the influencer's hostile reaction to even mild professional criticism from someone like PAMP showed the system was already brittle, already highly defensive, and unwilling to tolerate scrutiny, even back then.
Okay, phase 2, 2022. This feels like a major turning point.
Huge. This is the year of the Atosi expose. The detailed documentation of the pump and dump schemes came out.
And the system's reaction.
The defamation lawsuit. Node 4 in action. Try to silence the messenger. But then came the critical failure. The lawsuit was withdrawn. The bluff failed.
That should have been fatal, right?
Yeah.
Publicly exposed.
Logically, yes. But this is where the power of that parasocial bond, Node 3, becomes terrifyingly clear. Even after the public humiliation of the failed lawsuit, which essentially confirmed the critics' points, the sources show the Bit Squad still rallied. They raised something like $130,000 for his defense fund.
Wow. $130,000 raised to defend someone whose core deception had just been laid bare in court documents.
It's staggering, isn't it? It shows just how potent that victimhood inversion narrative was. They didn't see an exposed grifter, they saw their friend under attack by the system. And they paid up, completely overriding the logical evidence right in front of them.
So the loyalty, the emotional connection kept the grift alive much longer than it logically should have.
Way longer, which leads to phase 3, 2023. Now the walls are really closing in from multiple angles.
What happened in 2023?
You get the high-profile lawsuit involving promotion of FTX, linking him directly to that massive collapse. You get the messy situation with his own personal Ben token pump and dump. It looked desperate.
A sign of losing control.
Absolutely. But the most critical structural blow that year was probably getting removed from the hit network.
Losing the platform.
Exactly. When your distribution channel cuts you off, especially one operating in that same gray space, it's a major signal. It means even they now see you as too toxic, too legally risky. The human capital, the audience access, starts to hemorrhage immediately.
Which brings us to the final phase. Yeah. Phase 4, spanning late 2023 into potentially 2025, the terminal descent.
Yeah, this is the chaotic spiral, the IRL harassment incidents we mentioned, the very public personal issues like divorce, the increasingly unstable manifesto-style live streams. The system is basically eating itself from the inside out.
And the final proof of collapse.
Measurable irrelevance. The view count's just cratering, dipping below 5,000 views consistently. The audience, the collateral that fueled the entire machine, had finally walked away.
The chaos wasn't the cause of the collapse. It was the symptom. The final output of a system that was financially and structurally broken from the start.
Okay, Solarian, we've done the deep dive, we've laid out the mechanics, the psychology, the timeline. But the most crucial part of this whole exercise is translating it, making it actionable. This is the terminal analysis. We need to give you, the listener, the tools, the cognitive defenses to spot and neutralize these kinds of systems before they hook you.
Right. It starts with understanding this isn't just about one guy. We need to look at the broader ecosystem implications. This is a recurring pattern, a kind of crypto influencer pathology. And it's fueled by, what, 3 core dynamics in the environment itself?
I think so. First, you have the fundamentally perverse incentive structure.
Explain that.
It's simple. In this model, audience attention isn't just valued. It's directly, mechanically converted into cash via promotion fees. So if you're watching, if you're part of that audience, you need to understand your role. You are not the customer. You are the product being sold.
The audience is the exit liquidity.
You have to internalize that. The profit depends entirely on influencing your financial actions. That conflict of interest is baked in.
Okay, incentive structure. What's second?
Regulatory arbitrage. We keep hitting this. The not financial advice shield only works because the underlying market is so poorly or slowly regulated.
They're exploiting the gaps.
Exactly. Weaponizing the slowness of regulators to operate in this gray zone. They function like financial advisors. They command that kind of influence, but they carry zero of the legal responsibility or fiduciary duty.
And the third dynamic.
Scale dynamics. As these operations grow, the deception has to become more sophisticated just to maintain itself.
Why?
You can't just keep shilling tiny, obvious microcap scams forever as your audience gets bigger and maybe a bit wiser. The lies have to get better, the manipulation more subtle, the promoted projects perhaps look more legitimate initially. But this requires more effort, more complex cover-ups, and ultimately makes the whole structure even more unstable and prone to catastrophic failure when it finally unravels. It gets harder to keep the story straight.
Okay, so those are the environmental factors. How does someone protect themselves? We need that deception recognition framework. How do you spot the cracks instantly?
Number one, look for that persona-business misalignment. It's the biggest tell.
The friend who charges.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The moment you see someone cultivating that just-your-buddy persona, but they also have a published, explicit, high-price menu for shilling things, that $40,000 interview fee, that's it. Game over. Red flag. Friends don't charge friends for recommendations. That conflict is non-negotiable proof the persona is fake.
Okay. What else?
Listen for the directive contradictions. We talked about these. The second you hear that, be skeptical, but trust me specifically. Lie or do your own research on this coin I was just paid 6 figures to promote. Alarm should be blaring. You've spotted the manipulation node in action.
Don't just listen to the words, analyze the pattern.
Exactly. Demand evidence patterns. Look past the charisma, the hype, the sob stories. Focus entirely on the verifiable track record. What happened to the coins they promoted last year, last month? Is it a history of success or a graveyard of 99% losses and conveniently deleted videos? The data tells the real story. The pattern overrides the persona.
And finally, how do they react to challenge?
Look at their intimidation responses. This is critical. Healthy ecosystems, healthy communities, healthy experts, they welcome scrutiny. They engage with tough questions, provide evidence, maybe even admit mistakes. Corrupted systems, they react to legitimate criticism with aggression, with legal threats, with attempts to silence and deplatform. That $500,000 potential legal cost isn't a defense of truth. It's a weapon to suppress it. If the response to hard questions is legal warfare, run.
Okay, framework for spotting it. Now, the actual defense, the immunization strategies.
Yep.
4 cognitive protocols to build that mental shield.
Protocol 1, always, always, always practice incentive mapping.
Constantly ask.
How does this person profit from the action they want me to take? Relentlessly. If their profit is directly tied to you clicking their link, buying their token, signing up for their paid group, their advice is inherently compromised. Full stop. Follow the money. Always map the incentives.
Protocol 2.
Pattern recognition. Step back from the immediate hype. Ask yourself, what does this really remind me of? Is this structure like MLM? Does this rhetoric sound like televangelism? Is this legal threat a SLAPP suit tactic? Once you identify the historical grift pattern underneath the shiny new crypto wrapper, the illusion loses its power.
Protocol 3. Insist on an evidence requirement.
Your financial decisions should never be based on charisma, personality, follower count, or relatable origin stories. They should be based on demonstrated, verifiable, preferably audited track records of success and sound reasoning. Demand data, not drama.
And the final protocol. Look at the group itself.
Protocol 4. Conduct a community health assessment. How does the community around this influencer tolerate criticism or dissent? If anyone asking a skeptical question is immediately dogpiled, attacked, branded a hater, a FUDister, or banned, you're not in a healthy community seeking truth. You are likely in a cult of personality engineered for wealth extraction from its members. Healthy systems aren't afraid of questions, they thrive on them.
So, bringing it all together, this whole deep dive, the terminal analysis, it confirms that the Armstrong ecosystem, BitBoy, wasn't some weird outlier, was it?
Not at all. It was the inevitable, logical, almost mathematically guaranteed endpoint. It's what happens when you combine influencer-based financial advice with unregulated markets and a business model built on exploiting parasocial trust. The system contained the seeds of its own destruction. It had to consume itself and its audience. The model is fundamentally, irrevocably broken. And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Where will you see the audience as collateral axiom playing out in the next 24 hours? In news, in an ad, in a conversation. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.